welcome to the show, Vicky. Thanks very much for being a guest.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So look, I think I found out of you through the advertising sort of circles. I think I follow a couple of big people in the UK, and obviously you're pretty prolific over there. So, but first things first, we share a glass of wine or beverage at the beginning. So tell me a bit about which one you recommended that I try tonight.
Oh, hey, hold on. I didn't recommend it. Oh, you've already opened yours.
Yeah, sorry.
Mine was like a runner-up prize because I couldn't find a mini bottle of champagne, and I would have gotten a whole bottle, but it's 10 a.m. So I thought the one serve would be good, and I will not operate clients afterwards or whatever the phrase is. It might take me this whole time to open it.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I got the bigger bottle, and
Oh, so you did.
yes, and then I finished some exercise this afternoon. I thought, oh, I'll try this before. I hope you don't mind. Before the interview, and yeah, it was actually pretty nice. So, Prosecco is really big in the UK, though, right? I think it's less popular where I am. Tell me about sort of how it fits into the culture over there. Like, it seems to be the bigger choice between champagne.
So I do have a wine expert friend who'll probably cringe if he listened to me trying to talk about wine and champagne. But when I was younger, Prosecco used to be the cheaper option to champagne. And then I think the Brits caught on to Europeans thinking that Prosecco is better than champagne, but I'd always prefer champagne. Anyway, cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, thank you very much. It's actually really quite fruity, very easy to drink. Pretty dangerous,
Yeah,
actually.
it's a good morning drink.
Just peps you up at 10 a.m. in the morning. Well, thanks for sharing it with me in the morning. Have you had a coffee already, though? Or?
No, I don't drink coffee, so I guess this is a replacement. But I do get up really early when I've got loads of work on. So it's kind of like it's like nearly lunchtime for me. And you know, the old days of advertising, you'd go out for a champagne or martini, wouldn't you, at lunchtime? So let's pretend.
Those were the good old days, wasn't it? Geez.
Well, I used to say the good old days. Now I'm going to get all political straight up, but I've been reminded that it wasn't always good. I.e., sexism wasn't a great experience. But in terms of work, I would say it was the good old days. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of money flowing around, wasn't it? So I think now everyone's like ROI focused, and it's all digital, so it's all a bit transparent now.
Yeah, more business than pleasure.
That's it. Hey, so I actually listened to a couple of your podcasts and interviews. But just for everyone else, just a really quick summary of like who you are and maybe like 1 or 2 minutes max, and what you do.
Yeah, just before I do, I think a big shout out to you because I don't think I've ever been invited to a podcast where the interviewer has done so much research, like all the information back to me. I was like, wow. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
So what did you ask me? Oh dear.
Oh, like just a quick summary of who you are and what you do, just really quickly. But I'll give an intro at the start of the podcast anyway.
Okay, well, my intro is always, my name's Vicky and I'm a copywriter. And people who know me always say that's not enough to say to sort of add up all the things that I do. But I only ever wanted to be a copywriter, and I only ever want to be known for being a copywriter because I love my job and I value and promote and respect the craft, as you know. But I suppose a few more things is I mentor young female creatives. I teach at an advertising school in London, and I created a hashtag Copywriters Unite on Twitter to connect copywriters around the world, but also for copywriters to support each other and commiserate with each other, but also celebrate each other, because quite often they're working on their own, and I wanted there to be a place for them to be able to talk to each other. And the hashtag became so popular that it turned into real life meetups. So I host quarterly meetups in London. When we're all allowed out, we should note we're recording this in various stages of lockdown. So yeah, 4 in London, and then I have hosts around the world who host their own nights. So it's gone as far as Australia, I believe. So I'm really excited by that.
That's great. I think you definitely give back to the community, and I think kudos to you because a lot of people don't do that. It's easy to sort of whinge about it, but to do something is the next step. So I think that's really great, and I think also you're very supportive of me. I'll just thank you as well because I did my list and there was a bit of a gender imbalance and pulled myself up on it, and then I thought, okay, who do I know? And my social circles weren't as good in the professional scene in some areas. So yeah, thanks for accepting. I know it took me a little while, but yeah, thank you a lot.
No, no problem. I think like I never want to be that guy or girl, obviously. But in the climate that we're in, particularly right now, it's so easy to do the right thing. And all it takes is just to ask the question, have you thought about adding diversity to your list? And then, the person at the other end of that question has never intended maliciously to not have a diverse list. Sometimes they just need a reminder. So yes, I am that guy, girl.
Oh, that's good.
um,
It's like convenience sampling, right? Like that's basically what I was doing. I went through my list of connections, and they were already sort of leaning to one side. So then
yeah.
you go through that, and then subconsciously you have to you just go along with it unless you pull yourself up. So
Yeah, I think also like it's easy for me to do because I'm such a huge fan of so many people in the industry because I love my job. These names come to mind for me and they might not come to mind for others. So I'm happy to just roll them out and get them the attention that they deserve.
that's great. Okay, so my first question is I know your specialty in copywriting is like tone and voice, branding and tone and voice, but I don't really want to talk about copywriting because I know people ask you all the time, what's a good way to copyright this and that, and that's tactical, and I like that, but I want to ask you other questions. So, and I suppose I really want to hone down on like the value of copywriting because when we get down to the tactical level of execution, sometimes it's looked down upon as a bit lower brow. The manager sits up the top and does the macro strategy, and then sometimes the value of those small tactical tweaks can be, very high but fly under the radar. So I want to ask you about that today. But before we get into that, how would you describe what copywriting is to someone really succinctly and simply?
Words that sell.
Okay, I like that.
You weren't expecting it to be that succinct.
It's perfect.
So I hate writing long copy. I love writing headlines. Like, 5 words max is all I've got in me, really. So words that sell. But to expand on that, they are words that copywriting is words that go on a website or on packaging or in an email or on a billboard, and their intent is to encourage the reader of those words to act, preferably buy, but often it's click or share or download, but preferably buy to make the brand money.
Great. Okay, so as opposed to other forms of writing, what isn't copywriting? What does it get confused with?
Oh God, trademarking. I mean, I think every copywriter's been asked if they're a lawyer. But bringing it back to a closer industry, I think storytelling is a buzzword of late, and I think that is maybe diluting the purpose of copywriting. Yes, we have to create a connection with the reader and make them feel something, but we still do have to make them act at the end of it. We can't just sort of present information and wrap it up in a nice story with no call to action if our copywriting is to encourage sales.
Yeah, I see CTAs or call to actions are getting dropped off all the time, and I think this storytelling comes from some of the tech, branding community, where there's a couple of people I won't mention, but everyone's trying to sell their own angle, aren't they? But yeah, for me, I'm definitely with you. It's like if it doesn't work, it doesn't have an outcome. There's no much point in it, is there? It's just a nice story to read.
Exactly, but also I think there's a combination of copywriting not being respected often and copywriters trying to sell themselves as something else to make sure that their work is valued, and as such they call copywriting something else, and I'm not really a fan of that because I think because I'm always on about brand consistency. If copywriting is a brand, then we should stay true to the story that we tell of copywriting, and if we're blurring the lines and calling ourselves storytellers, or worse things that I've seen like verbal identity creators, or verbal designers. That doesn't help either. So yeah, I'd really like it if we all just stuck to calling ourselves copywriters.
Yeah, well, the same thing happens with marketing. Like Silicon Valley didn't like it, so that it got rebadged into growth. So like I find these terms that they're an old proposition that is rebadged and rebranded into a new term. That's the flavor of the month or year. So yeah,
Yeah,
maybe that's what's happened to copywriting.
afraid so.
So what about the longevity of just 2 weeks ago, GPT-3 came out, which is Elon Musk's OpenAI script writing engine for language processing. So basically, you could put in a couple of parameters of what you want the program to talk about, and it would just flesh out this written prose, right? Did you have a check of that, and what do you think? Is that a threat to the future of copywriting?
Right, okay, so no, I didn't look into it because I thought you'd just sent me some marketing jargon to consider, and I thought it would come out in the wash as we were talking today, which it now has. But I do have thoughts on that. I actually gave a talk in Mumbai last year at a conference called Z-Melt, and it was called The Robots Aren't Coming. And I spent about 3 months researching it, and there's just no way a robot can write better than a copywriter. They might be able to do some of the sort of bring stuff that requires a template and a structure, and that could take away from copywriters, but that could be a good thing because I think most copywriters love their job and love the creativity of it, so it enables them to keep the creativity. But what I found was some of the best writing comes from a personal experience or emotion, and robots haven't experienced anything and they don't have emotion, so they can't draw on that to tell a good story, and you can't program them to have feelings. So I think we're okay there.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head for sure. So, yeah, I found the same. Like when I looked at some of the examples of this engine that people had been given the beta to, it was technically sort of correct, but the context was lacking. Like the way that it would structure from start to finish, there was sort of no story behind it or reasons why. It was just prose, stuck together. Like linguistically and grammatically, it was fine. But it was just like as if a robot had created an article, for example.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It will write in a straight line, but it won't find a way to go off and add humour or a play on words or, like I said, a personal reference. So it'll work for some things, but not others. So I'm not worried. I
Yeah.
think also there seems to be so many copywriter jobs going at the moment and social media jobs going. During the pandemic, businesses have moved their operations online, and so we're needing to write to consumers more than we did before. And so copywriters, they might not be feeling it right now, but if they just hang on, I think that we're very much in demand, as long as we're valued for doing the job in the first place, and marketers don't, in a budget saving exercise, say they'll do the copy themselves, which
Oh my god.
angers me.
Or clients themselves who try and convince you otherwise. Okay, that gives me a good point because I want to ask you this. And I use the analogy of like everyone goes to restaurants, so they naturally think they can run a restaurant until they open the restaurant. They figure out, oh wow, that's really hard, and it's like hyper competitive. I find that it's the same about copywriting. When I first started, I'm like, oh, how hard can it be? Then you're faced with this blank template, and you go, oh, how do I do this? And then suddenly you're researching other competitors and trying to draw something together, and because you've never written that style before, it's actually quite hard. So I feel sometimes people don't value the profession because everyone can write. So what would you say to that?
So I always say everyone can write, but not everyone can write copy. There's a difference between writing a marketing or a strategy deck and writing a piece of copy that has to go out to a consumer. There are tricks and techniques that a copywriter knows that a non-copywriter doesn't, and those tricks and techniques are to make copy succinct, or to make the reader feel something, or to give it a bit of rhythm so it's enjoyable and flows right. And I don't want to pinpoint marketers, but just for shorthand, marketers don't know all of those tricks and techniques. They might repeat something in a piece of copy just because they forgot they already wrote it earlier on in the piece, whereas copywriters use repetition as a technique to make the customer remember something, but it's done in a different way. And like copywriters would always tell you they've been in a meeting with a marketer stroke client, and they'll just question pieces of copy because they'll base it on their English degree that they did at university. And copywriting is not proper formal English. It's totally different. It's a conversation, it's a dialogue. So it should feel more natural, and it shouldn't be attached to the formalities that we were all taught at school, or if we went to university. I didn't, but at university. So things like using full words, you like do not or we can, you would use contractions to make it feel more conversational, so don't and can't. And like a favorite is people who have English degrees love saying you can't start a sentence with and, whereas actually that's a really good technique, or but, or because, or any of those. But they're really good techniques for helping copy go, especially when you've got a lot to say.
You know, it's funny you say that, because after these podcasts, I then have to listen to it all, right, and transcribe it. And then I found a more automated way of doing that, right? So once I put the conversation through those systems, and it comes out, and you see the text on the page, you're like, oh wow, that like looks really bad, because it's so informal and spontaneous, and you use the wrong words out of context, you repeat yourself all the time. So I completely understand where you're coming from there. But it wasn't until I did that I was like, oh wow, that's the way people really talk.
Yeah. And it feels more natural, and it's not right. I guess you have to be careful with that. That's a broad rule, but it's not true for everything. So if you were a scientist writing to another scientist in a piece of communication, that would be how scientists have conversations. So there's a different conversation going on, and depending on the copywriter's approach and audience.
Yeah, I agree. So speaking of that, then maybe you don't have enough money to hire an experienced copywriter, or you have a team that's a bit junior. What are the sort of red flags or telltale signs of a copywriter who maybe is at the start of their journey versus someone like yourself who would be at the other end of the sort of experience spectrum?
When I was a junior and thought I was good, I mean, I was, because I wouldn't have got to where I am now. But, you look back and you see the old stuff and you're like, wow, I wrote that. But as a junior, you're excited and you want to get romantic. And, I worked in beauty for 8 years, starting as a junior copywriter. So there was lots of opportunity to get romantic. But, you don't have to say everything all at once. Sometimes the key outtake is in what you don't say. Like, let the reader breathe and let the reader work some things out for themselves. Don't make them work hard, but give them a bit of credit for having their own intelligence. And then there are just words that you can't help putting in. That is a word you can always take out. I'm writing to tell you that it's hot today. You can just say, I'm writing to tell you it's hot today. But then I've just tripped myself up, because if you're writing something to someone, you don't need to say, I'm writing to tell you, because it's evident in the fact that they are reading a piece of your writing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it's knowing what to take out and when to stop.
Okay.
And not using jargon.
And maybe like, I mean, I'm just learning here, but active and passive voice, we come across this a lot in the website world. So overuse of one or the other, is that another sign, or?
Yes, thank you. Junior copywriters love the passive voice. I don't think they know that they love it. I think that it's an easy default, because I think in their head when they're learning, they're thinking, what shouldn't I say? And then they say the thing that they shouldn't, which is very hard to follow through when you're writing a billboard campaign, for example, because you don't have long to get someone's attention. So tell them what they want to know, not what they don't want to know.
And it's funny. Yeah, look, I found the same thing when I was trying to distill, when I work with tech companies, and they have this product that does lots of things, and it's really hard to distill all that down into like one common proposition or in a sentence. And the elevator pitch, for example, that took me hours and hours and hours of like, okay, what's the core thing that brings everything together? And it was the shortest piece of copy ever, but it took the longest. So do you find the same? Like, is some people trying to value copywriting based on the length of the copy that they receive, as opposed to maybe the quality or the impact it may have?
I haven't experienced that personally, but I do know that companies do try and charge by the word or comment on how copy couldn't have taken the copywriter long if it's only 3 lines. But 3 lines can take a day if you're, working through what those 3 lines need to be. But just to your earlier point about having lots to say, sometimes copywriting can just be a way of presenting the facts and the information in a memorable way and not in a longer piece if you don't have the space. So for example, Apple, I think it's for their mobile or one of their products, I'm sorry, I can't remember, actually maybe it's their camera, rather than say the camera is capable of doing 10 different things and then describing each of them, they just use repetition and alliteration to get the facts and the benefits across. And it's something like flip it, snap it, twirl it, catch
Uh-huh.
it. And it just goes on for about 8 times, 8 repeats. And that just makes the reader smile and get the benefits straight away.
Yeah, and it's funny. They do the same with the new watch ad, the Apple Watch. They
Maybe it's
go the
that.
feature all the way through all different use cases, and right at the end, it's like, and it's just really a watch. And that's the thing that you remember out of everything else. Like it's like you forget the first part of the ad, and then you go, oh yeah, it is a watch.
Yeah.
And you think about the features afterwards, and you're like, oh, that's a really clever way of doing it. Everyone
Yeah.
else does it the opposite way around. This is the product, feature. Buy it now.
Yeah.
I found that really cool too. So I suppose we're talking about like good copywriting here and how you measure it. So like obviously some of the copywriting you do is on the brand level, which may be in a less, how would I say, sales transactional kind of use case. So how would you assess good copy from bad copy, or how do you measure it or put a value on it if an executive's asking you or you're trying to justify your rate, for example?
I don't really have a good answer for this, I'm afraid, because I'm a consultant now and I'm not exposed to all of the information that would give me those answers, but I used to be. So, for example, when I worked at Expedia, they tested everything all the time. Every day, copy was tested and design, etc. And so we would always respond to whatever those figures were. Um, and where
So
else
like
did I
this
have
isn't
it?
a website setting or like an app setting, so you can directly measure before and after, a split test, that kind of thing, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and where the reader looks first, and is their eye drawn to the call to action button? Should the call to action button be red? Should the copy on the call to action button be on brand, or should it be a straight transactional piece of copy that says something like "buy now"?
Hmm.
And so then that's where my branding area comes in. So buy now or other straight and more direct pieces of copy on a call to action button do in tests respond far better than or work far better than a branded piece of copy. So for example, Virgin Holidays, they'll say when you're reading about a holiday that you might be interested in, the call to action button, instead of saying book now or view more or find out more, it will say save me a spot or I'm there or can't wait. And what was I saying? Yes, sorry. So the direct buttons respond better when a brand doesn't have a distinct tone of voice and brand personality. But when a brand like Virgin Atlantic does, and the customer is used to them speaking in that way consistently on everything, they expect the buttons to speak to them in that way too. So they respond in the same way, I'm told. Whereas if they'd flipped and they'd gone direct, which would be a break in their brand consistency and tone of voice, customers could react negatively because suddenly it feels like somebody else is talking to them. It feels a bit more formal. Maybe legal's got involved, and suddenly you're not enjoying the experience that you were first experiencing. Yeah, so it's quite interesting and also good for me to be able to bang on about it when I'm always trying to push for brand consistency with all the brands I work with.
That dreaded legal department, hey, it's just the bane of my existence sometimes.
Well, I love working with the legal department,
What?
which I think makes me such a geek. I had a really good experience with the first lawyer I ever worked with, and that was when I worked at the Body Shop. So in beauty, you can't actually claim that anything does anything because it doesn't. Like, no cream can get rid of wrinkles. You need plastic surgery for that. But lots of products say it. And so I worked with a great lawyer from L'Oreal. And he just got marketing and I got what his issues were. So when I said we want to say X, he'd say you can't say that, but you can say this. And we just had a really good relationship working through things. But some other legal departments, well, I don't know. I've never had a bad experience. They always get it. I think sometimes it's the marketing people in between. Sorry, I'm having a right bash at marketers.
Well, I hate those marketers. Terrible people.
I don't hate marketers. They give me lots of work. But sometimes the legal team can tell the marketing team that you can't say something for legal reasons. And rather than work with the legal team to find out what you can say, marketing will just come straight back to the copywriter and say, no, legal said no. And that's their like get out, just blame it on legal.
So instead of going, here's the context and there's the confines, or this is what not to do list. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I always say, can you let me speak with legal, please? In fact, you and I had to rearrange this call because I had to speak with legal about something the other day.
Okay, well, that's a good excuse. That's great. So like, we're talking a bit about here, the barriers to really good copywriting. Is that one of the barriers that you see, like legality, obviously? But I work a lot in projects as well, and multiple people with different interests. And what do you see as the biggest barriers to really good copywriting in the modern era?
Well, at the briefing stage, there's the classic piece on a brief that says what the key message is, or the one USP, and it's always filled in with like 6 different points rather than one. And it's because you've got lots of people feeding in and they've all got their, like you say, like their areas to cover. And as a copywriter, you only want to say one thing. If you can't say one thing clearly and you're saying lots of things in a muddled way, then the customer, the reader, won't know what to do. So it's hard to get people at the pre-briefing stage to agree on what the piece of communication needs to do. That's the first hurdle, I suppose. But then in the approval process, I guess you have to rely on the person who's reviewing the work to really get what good copy looks like. So, for example, I wrote a TV ad last month, and it started with like an opening line that was just going to stay on the frame and live on its own. And then after a beat, it was going to be followed with going into further copy to explain what that opening line said. But the person reviewing it said that the first line didn't connect to the second line, and could you just add the word "and" to bridge the two? And that's not how copywriting works. You don't just stick a word in to bridge 2 lines together. Like, they have to flow. And the "and" in that case didn't work. It often does, but it didn't in that case. And that's just not reading it out loud, not getting the full picture. And also, I suppose, if you're going to feedback on copy, do just that. Give feedback. Don't try and rewrite it yourself. Let the copywriter do it. Like, the copywriters come at it from a certain point of view. You can't just stick words in where you feel like it.
That happened to me just yesterday. I wrote an article.
Congratulations.
10 interviews, with 10 different business owners. And then one of them rewrote the whole passage. Everyone else said, oh, yeah, that's great. Maybe just change this capital because this is my brand name. And, I forgot to put a capital in. Or actually, this is, one word change. One guy, 200 words, rewritten completely. And just the whole style and flow of the whole piece just stopped. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, let me do that. But that's a good point, though. So I always say that clients should feedback on the facts. If I've got facts wrong, educate me on what the facts are so that I get them right. But let me work out how I put them together in a piece of copy.
Yeah, I like that answer. That's really good. Here's a bit of a Peter Thiel question, right? He's the PayPal sort of guy and billionaire in Silicon Valley. He asked this to employees, but he says, what's something about your discipline of copywriting that most people believe in, but which to be wrong? So is that an orthodox kind of view about copywriting that everyone thinks that it should be done this way, and you found out in your experience actually the opposite is true, or sort of common?
No, I think it is just that everyone thinks that they can do it and that it's easy. And it is easy for copywriters. It isn't easy for non-copywriters. I mean, there are some, obviously, people have a flair. But yeah, I think the general rule for me would be everyone can write, but not everyone can write copy.
Okay. And you mentioned in when I did my research that you're a better writer than a speaker, but I think you speak quite well. Like on this interview, there's nothing
Maybe
wrong.
I need champagne. Yeah,
Is that
I
is that because the prosecco or something? Or
yeah, maybe. I just feel when I'm talking that I just waffle and I lose my way, and yeah, I'm doing it now. Whereas with writing, that's in private. You can't see what I'm deleting and trying again with, but yeah, on stage or even talking with you in what would seem, intimate and relaxed. Yeah, I just get a bit nervous.
well, I have to say I'm kind of the same. Like if someone asks me a question, and sometimes I think this comes with depth of knowledge. If they ask you a really general question, you have a lot of knowledge. It's like, how do I frame that in a way that's conversational that they'll understand? Or just it takes me a little while to think about what's the best way to answer that question, or frame it. So yeah, I completely hear you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I recorded a podcast a couple of months ago, and I listened to it when it went live. And I mean, I take about 3 days to answer some of the questions, and they didn't even edit it. So it's evident that I need time to myself to be able to come out with a good line.
Nice. I like that. So what are some of the funniest moments you've had in your career so far? Anything that sort of stands out as really quirky or funny?
I can't think of anything like hilarious, but I've had a lot of fun. I've been on loads of trips that I never thought as a copywriter I would get to go on. I thought copywriters just sat behind their computer screen and wrote words and never spoke to anyone and never went anywhere. But I don't know, maybe I've got lucky, but I've been around the world with my job, and on photo shoots and to premieres, and I've met celebrities, and as I said, like just really unexpected. I never thought any of those things would happen, but probably my biggest moment in my career that was like incredibly unexpected was I went to Kensington Palace last year to meet Prince Harry and Meghan Markle about writing their website.
Wow, that's a big boast right there.
I know I've never actually told anyone that.
That's insane. Well, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure you can't talk about it either, but that's a big one. And weren't you involved with Michael Jackson's album or something? Is that correct?
Oh yeah, that makes it sound like I knew him, which I didn't. No, no, no. At a very tiny level, in my job hopping before becoming a copywriter, one of my jobs was office admin assistant at a PR agency, and they were putting on the album launch party for that Michael Jackson Blood on the Dance Floor. So I licked envelopes and stamps, and I went to the party. That's yeah,
You
that's the
mean
closest.
you mean you wrote copy, right?
No, no words shared. That was before I was a copywriter, but desperately trying to be one somewhere.
It's a good claim though. So wow, that's two pretty big celebs right there, or three.
Yeah, well, I was very excited about Meghan because I watched Suits religiously, whereas I didn't have a huge interest in the royal family. But then I guess I was swayed because Prince Harry was a utter delight.
No, that's great. And Suits, like I watched that as well. I really like the way they it's just lawyer banter, but the way they frame moments within when they're negotiating with each other and sort of how they screw each other over. I thought that was really clever the way they use words in that. Like I'm sure some pretty experienced writers were writing for that film, of that series.
Definitely,
Mm.
yeah, it was a good show.
What books are you reading on copywriting that you'd recommend other people read? Or it doesn't have to be
Uh,
copywriting; it could be just something to do with your professional sort of career.
Well, I mean, copywriters should read anything and everything, and I mean it. Like even the pizza delivery leaflet or the poster in the doctor's surgery, anything. But books on copywriting, I always recommend Steve Harrison's How to Write Better Copy.
Hmm.
He's a copywriter. I mean, he's far more than that. He's multi award winning and extremely successful in advertising and direct marketing. But copywriters write the best books, and he writes it conversationally. And I mean, I read it in 2 hours. It's great. Junior by Thomas Kemeny is a great book for junior copywriters, but I would say senior copywriters could learn from it too. It's also a really enjoyable read, again, written by a copywriter. And then my favorite recent book that I read was by Bernice Fitzgibbon, who was the highest paid copywriter in the 40s, and her book is called Macy's, Gimbel and Me. And then one more, I would recommend Mary Wells Lawrence's A Big Life in Advertising. She was a copywriter, but it's not about copywriting, it's about her life in advertising, obviously, and some of the huge success that she had and the major turnarounds that she made within brands. And I just read it thinking, my God, how do I get a brain like that?
Wow. Yeah. Look, I know two of those books, but the other two, that's perfect. I'm definitely going to read some of those, especially Steve Harrison's, because it's 2 hours. So I'm guessing a short book, right?
Not like majorly short, just so easy to read. You just bounce from page to page.
It reminds me of like Marty Neumeier. He's a branding guy in I think it's San Jose or San Diego, and it was a very visual sort of small book on what a brand is and what it isn't. And I just really like the way he told that story. So that's one back at you if you haven't read that one already.
No, I haven't.
The Brand Gap or something, I think it's called.
Cool.
Yeah, so you can give it to any executive who goes, "Oh, what is a brand?" And then they read the book and they go, "Oh, I get it." I don't get all the nuances, but I understand.
Well, that's great because I haven't read many books on branding as such, so that would be good.
Favorite website or resource? Google. Okay, that's it. That's easy. What about favorite piece of tech that you can't do without that helps you do your job better?
My laptop. I'm not a tech person. I can pretty much only use a Word document, so my laptop is fine.
Okay, so it's not a Moleskine with like an ink pen or something, or
no. In meetings, I do write notes, but when it comes to writing copy, it's straight to the computer.
Nice. What about something you want to promote? So, Copywriters Unite, you mentioned. Is there anything else sort of close to your heart that you want to sort of give a plug out for? Or?
Yes, please. So Women in Marketing have just launched their awards competition this year. They're in their 10th year. And this year they added a copywriting category, which I'm delighted about, especially as other competitions have removed their copywriting categories, although I'm told that's temporary, but they shouldn't have done it in the first place. And what's great about it is there are no barriers to entry unless you're a man, but it's for women anywhere and everywhere to enter. The entry fee is half the price of all the other categories in the competition, but also just crazy low compared to other competitions. You don't have to get your agency's permission. You don't have to create a case study or a film. It just needs to be a piece of copy that has gone out in the last year. And it will be judged purely on the craft, not the sales figures, not the uplift or increase in response, none of that, just writing.
Wow, that's great. I like that sort of no approval thing as well. That makes it easy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
okay.
I think also if you're a freelancer, often your work or what you worked on at an agency will be entered into an award and you won't be credited for it because you're not a member of staff, but this allows you to do that yourself.
Oh, yes. Good point. Yeah, it's the classic taking credit for other people's work that happens in agency land all the time.
Yeah, well, not just in agency land, on social media too. I have a real issue with people not crediting others because, especially in the creative world, your work is your currency and you deserve to be credited for it. It amazes me that people have so much time to just sort of lift an idea or a meme or a piece of work from someone else's tweet or LinkedIn post or whatever and then share it as their own. I don't get that. Why would you do that?
It happens on Instagram all the time as well, and Twitter actually. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize that the person behind a lot of famous celebs' Twitter accounts is a copywriter. They don't have time to post all that stuff. You might get the occasional like inebriated kind of weird tweet, from the person themselves, but the rest is curated, right? It's someone's job.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. What's let's say someone really connected with what we're talking about tonight. I know it's a quick one, but what's the best way for someone to contact you? Maybe ask you a question. I know you're really popular, but best channel.
Yeah, I'm happy for people to contact me about copywriting anytime. And I'm not shy with my email address. So that's vickyrosswrites@mail.com or I'm on Twitter, banging on about copy all the time, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Okay, no, that's really good. I mean, I see you on Twitter a lot, and some of the stuff you raise is really good. Like, it's quite entertaining. So, the occasional sort of like pet gripe in the copywriting industry, but I'm sure that happens all the time. So, look, I just want to thank you for your time. I'm conscious of the time here, and you've got to go. So, thanks again for the time, and cheers to the prosecco. That was really good.